Sifu is a game that appeals to me at all angles. Not only is it challenging and rewards mastery, but shares its core design with action games like Devil May Cry and God Hand, where you're given an expansive moveset designed with purpose but to ultimately be used depending on the creativity of the player. This freedom creates self-expression and leads the player down a path of creating the perfect run that culminates into a satisfaction that other game genres, aside from roguelikes and fighting games, can easily replicate. It's for that exact reason that after multiple playthroughs and 100%ing Sifu that I'm still drawn back to it and can't put it down. The purpose of this video is to analyze Sifu as a whole and why it's worth your time, effort, and more importantly, money. Sifu is a modern beat-em-up game that takes inspiration from the free-flow combat you see in most games nowadays that was birthed from Batman Arkham Asylum. That combat system was designed around enemies attacking you and having to counter them with the press of a button. Sifu's combat is more engaging than its predecessors thanks to its other influences such as Sekiro and, of course, God Hand, where enemies are often unrelenting and require your full attention, otherwise you'd meet an early grave. Similar to Sekiro, the central mechanic to our combat flows is dictated by the posture bar, or as it's called in Sifu, structure. Once the bar fills on an enemy, you can instantly take them down. If they manage to fill up yours, you're left defenseless and vulnerable, leaving you open to take more damage and can lead to you dying, which turns encounters into intense back and forths, where getting overconfident or sloppy could cause problems for you, making the main goal to avoid any sort of damage and keep your structure low, which won't happen if you're passive and not pressing forward, just like Sekiro. And just like God Hand, a surefire way to avoid damage is to dodge out of the way. Unique to Sifu is that you have to alternate between high and low dodges. Lows are often quite fast to react to, but once done, reward you with a window to punish the enemy that threw it out, with the same being done for high attacks, though the window is not as generous in some instances. This is where blocking and parrying comes in to further round out combat. Similar to games before Sifu, once you press the block button just before an attack hits you, you end up parrying it, negating damage and structure damage. It also lowers any structure damage taken from certain attacks, and just blocking negates damage from most attacks but fills up the structure bar. These mechanics further add depth to Sifu's combat, where it becomes a balance between dodging all attacks and learning patterns to pick your spot to parry in those patterns to attain full mastery of what the game has to offer. Making blocking still serve a purpose, as you can block the weaker attacks in a pattern and then parry the last hit to quickly deal with enemies. Some attacks are lightning fast to react to, but as I learned from playing, you can't parry everything or dodge everything. So just pick your spot to do what you think is best and become one with the game. One of Sifu's last direct comparisons to this inspiration is how you, as the player, can directly control the state of the enemy. Sure, you can't shuriken them like in God Hand, but you can throw them into enemies to help with crowd control, you can trip them to put them on the ground to help when outnumbered, or throw them over railings and other heights to instantly deal with them. These small touches add a lot of interactivity and expression into every encounter, making each fight feel dynamic and put you in control of a room once you understand how to manipulate enemies, just like its inspirations. The true beauty of Sifu is how Slow Clap took these inspired ideas and mechanics and blended it together with their own to make a unique experience, which is a great segue to talk about how Sifu tackles progression and death. Similar to roguelites in Sifu, if you were to reach a game over state, then everything you've unlocked up to that point in a run will have to be unlocked all over again, unless you put in enough experience points to permanently unlock what skills you think are important. In Sifu, you only have a limited amount of deaths during one run of the game until it's time to start from scratch. With your first death, you age by 1 year, with each subsequent death a year is added to the death counter. Also tied to age are upgrades you can unlock during a level, like increasing your max structure, that get locked out once you get too old. The same goes for a variety of unlockable skills. This helps to add a sense of tension when playing and helps to reinforce the idea of learning and mastering the game. Since the younger you are, the wider your moveset and range of upgrades is, it incentivizes players to come to grips with its mechanics and enemies to make losses sting less and increase the reward for practicing and improving. Depending on how you look at it, you could either say Sifu gets easier the older you get or more difficult. Every 10 years in age you gain, your main health pool is decreased but your base damage goes up. Even at 20 you can't take much damage before dying, but as you age up you're more of a glass cannon. So while enemies fall quicker, the same applies to you. And even more emphasis is placed on playing well and learning from your mistakes. Being placed under the stress of losing all your progress isn't easy, but when you overcome it all, you've made the right call. Sifu is rather short. It's comprised of 5 levels that on average will take less than an hour to finish one. However, don't be fooled by this. Just like Devil May Cry and every action game out there, what you're getting is one of the most polished experiences out there. I easily recommend Sifu to anyone based on its gameplay alone, but there's 2 more points to touch on before ending this video. It's no secret that Sifu is heavily inspired by martial arts movies, Chinese culture, and action games, but if you look at what you get when not looking at its gameplay inspirations, what you're left with is its homage to films and Chinese culture. From the first frame as the game starts, you're welcome to this beautiful painted art style that utilizes color and shading to great effect. Its strong use of color makes the mystical elements the game has to show off stand out and conveys how otherworldly it is. Color is then used to place emphasis on the tone of the game and the actions of the player. During repeat playthroughs, you just sprint through levels, but if you just slow down a moment, take it all in. The atmosphere Sifu has is one of its strengths. Just like how its movie influences coalesce into gameplay through nods in its direction of its set pieces, which elevate the experience. Just like its bosses. At the end of each level, there's a boss for you to fight, and they're all fantastic. They all have the through line of being a test of reactions and memorization. Each boss specializes in a different weapon style. Vergil uses a blade and is the most straightforward of them all. Sean uses a staff that requires you to know when to dodge and when to block. Kuroki uses a 3-section staff that is a test of the player's understanding of patterns and patience. Jinfei uses a chain bell with massive range and teaches you about closing the distance. And then there's Yang, who uses your fighting style against you and is the best fighter in the entire game. A common trope I love in action games is the rival character that uses a similar moveset to you. While Yang isn't seen or fought as frequently as those characters, it doesn't take away from the sheer impact of facing them at the end. Everything that you've learned from fighting enemies and all the previous bosses was leading to this. If you haven't learned to parry or the dodge timings, then the fight is harder and it feels unbeatable. But once all your skills, effort, and time pay off and you beat them, it feels great, for the first time or the 20th. I'm aware that while I analyzed certain aspects of Sifu, I didn't go too deeply into some of them. It wasn't due to laziness or me forgetting, but because of the title of the video. I wanted to analyze and highlight the aspects of the game that make it worth buying and experiencing to me, and I hope I was successful with that today. If it's on sale or for the normal price, either way it's still worth grabbing in my eyes. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video from me and watched to the end, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel and help support the creation of these videos on Patreon or send a donation to my PayPal, which should be on the screen and in the description. I plan on creating more game analysis videos, but as of what games and when they'll be made, I'm uncertain. But hey, that's how this YouTube thing is for me right now. If things get stable through your support, then I'll know exactly what to do. Till next time.